Hello, I'm Alasdair Macleod and I'm in Madrid on behalf of the GoldMoney Foundation. And with me I have Juan Ramón Rallo, who is one of the leading Austrian school economists in Spain. Welcome.
Hello.
Tell me, is interest in the Austrian school of economic theory growing in Spain, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I think it is growing, especially not in the academia, because well, we know that the academia is closed and it's not willing to accept ideas who don't fit in their framework, in their established framework. But from a social point of view, I think many people who is approaching to economics, who wants to understand how the economy is going, how the business cycle is developing, tries to take the Austrian framework in order to understand it. Furthermore, not only common people but also businessmen who are interested in foreseeing what will happen in the economy, and that have realized that the real alternative is Austrian economics, because it's the only school that provides a theory of boom and bust related to monetary phenomena.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem to me that the great flaw in Keynesian economics is that they can actually get an economy going by injecting money into it, whereas that is an old fallacy.
Not only money, but expenditure in general. Keynesian economics assumes that demand leads supply. So if you stabilize your level of expenditure, whatever it is form of, whatever it is its composition, you can achieve growth, you can achieve an economy going, you can make an economy going. But this is obviously totally wrong. I mean, if you have a structure of production which is totally distorted, which makes no sense, which has a lot of houses, a lot of construction capacity, but on the other hand you have a completely lack of raw materials, for example, obviously if you spend more money you are not solving the internal problems of the supply, of the structure of production. So Austrian economics realizes and establishes what say that supply equals demand. Not that, as Keynes misunderstood, say that supply creates its own demand. That's something that Keynes never said, never said. So if you have a flawed supply, you also have a flawed demand, which is what we are now seeing. I mean, when Keynesians say that we have a problem of demand, it's true, but it's a problem of demand because we have a problem of supply. You cannot solve supply from demand because the structure of production, the structure of capital is so heterogeneous, it's so it's much specific. You cannot put a sofa in order to produce oil. So if you have invested a lot in producing houses, you cannot use that production capacity to produce more oil. You have to save in order to create new capital goods, in order to abandon old bad investments. So just by printing money, just by issuing debt by the government, you cannot solve a problem which is more structural, which comes from the division that labor has been divided in a wrong way.
You touched on the boom conditions, which have particularly affected Spain. How is that unwinding at the moment? It's obviously a painful process, but presumably there's a lot more unwinding of that to occur.
Yes, especially if you take a look to, for example, United States, you can see that much of the adjustment in the housing sector has been done. Why? Because prices had fall a lot. They have adjusted to more or less their fundamentals. But when you see Spain, of course there are many other problems in the United States, but at least the sector that started the crisis more or less has been adjusted. Problem is that the state has grown, has increased spending a lot, so you have now a public and state problem in the economy. A too big state who is spending too much and who cannot finance their too huge expenditures without monetizing debt, basically.
Yeah.
But in Spain, the adjustment in the real sector, in part, has been done obviously because when you have 5 million unemployed people, you cannot say that there hasn't been a huge destruction of production structures. But in the case of the housing sector, prices have not fallen as much as they should, not even a half probably of what they should. Many of the enterprises who build houses are still in the business, not because they can pay, but because the banks try to lend them money so that their illiquidity don't turn into a bankruptcy. But that doesn't solve the problem. That puts the problem forward. So if to this situation, which is very complicated because it has been here for 4 years at least, you add that the rest of the economy cannot create more wealth, more business plans which are affordable, which can be financed and profitable, because you have a very rigid, a very inflexible labor market, an energy market which is each time more expensive because government is subsidizing renewable energies, which are a crazy thing. If you add to this framework of the economy, which is very complicated, and a state which has the same problems than that of the United States, but without the printing press, then you have the current situation, because government cannot print money, so private savers see how is the economy, how is the whole society. So how can you repay a debt if your economy is falling and your debt is increasing?
Absolutely. And from what you say, that the process has hardly started. And presumably it's very difficult for the politicians, not only in Spain but elsewhere in Europe, to accept that we're now in a sort of period of overall money contraction in terms of bank credit, because the banks naturally have become more cautious. They want to maybe defer the bankruptcies, say, in the construction sector, as you described. But it's a process, this sort of stopping the banks from contracting their credit is a very difficult thing to control and manage, I would think.
It's an impossible process. I mean, the problem is not only that banks don't want to lend, it's also that private people in general, of course you have exceptions, but as an aggregate, if we want to think in aggregate terms, don't want to borrow, because they have reached a point of debt saturation. They are so much indebted that they don't want more debts, because they cannot even pay current debts. It's nonsensical that they assume more debts. So we are in a process of private deleveraging, because all agents, families, enterprises, even banks want to reduce their debts. What happens? Governments don't want to assume this, because this obviously is painful. You have to go through a process where, well, aggregate demand was composed by future goods, by credit. So if not only the level of credit expansion reduces, but in fact goes back, during a time you have a contraction of demand and then a necessity for restructuring the structure of production, for readjusting the structure of production. And that is painful, that is unpopular. So governments want to stabilize, as Keynes said, aggregate demand. And how they do? Well, if private people don't want to get indebted, they go indebted by other people. So they issue debt and they monetize debt. During a time, well, especially if your currency is an international reserve, like the United States, that may not have bad consequences, or at least bad consequences that you can see. For instance, inflation. You cannot see a huge inflation even when they are printing huge quantities. But in fact, by printing money, you are destroying capital, you are destroying savings, and you are delaying the adjustment process. So society is getting poor, it is more indebted. People want to be less indebted, but governments make them more indebted. They borrow money faster than private people repay debts.
And of course, printing money destroys savings, and you cannot have a sustainable economic growth without the savings,
of course,
to provide the investment for free enterprise and the entrepreneurs to get going again.